upstairs. What would you do if the man who promised to protect you ordered you out of his home in front of every servant? Duke, Nathaniel Ravensmere believed his wife had humiliated him by accusing his estate steward of falsifying the drainage surveys. Clara, 1 hour to leave the castle, and sent her to a dower house everyone claimed was unsafe. Clara refused to beg. She packed her father's compass, crossed the estate alone, and entered the neglected building just before its front steps cracked beneath her feet. The damage was not caused by age. Water was being forced through a channel beneath the foundation. Following the vibration, Clara tore up a bedroom plank and uncovered a map wrapped in oilskin. Her father's handwriting marked a forgotten floodgate capable of saving the tenant village. But the same map proved someone had deliberately built the Duke's expensive reservoir in the only position guaranteed to fail. Then Nathaniel arrived not to apologize, but to arrest her for stealing the map. He entered the ruined bedroom with Steward Silas Vane and 4 men behind him. Rain darkened Nathaniel's black riding coat, and the anger in his face was colder than the water seeping between the floorboards. From the document, he said, Clara remained on her knees beside the lifted plank. The oilskin rested across her lap, its edges stiff with age. "This is my father's hand, a confidential survey of Ravensmere land. Then perhaps you should ask why Elias Ashbourne hid it beneath a house your steward declared uninhabitable." Vane moved forward. He was a narrow man, with silver at his temples and the patient voice of someone accustomed to being believed. "Your Grace, Lady Clara had access to the map room before dinner. She could have placed it here to support her accusation." Clara looked at the wet boots behind him. Vane's soles carried pale blue clay found only along the new reservoir wall, although he had claimed at dinner that he had spent the entire day in the estate office. "Also force water beneath the foundation?" she asked. Nathaniel's gaze dropped to the trembling boards. For an instant, doubt interrupted his anger. Then Vane pointed to the broken lock on an iron box beneath the floor. "The estate seal was kept in that chest. It is gone." Nathaniel's expression closed again. "Give me the map, Clara." She folded the oilskin over the ink before either man could see the lower section. "Not until I make a copy. You are in no position to bargain. Neither is the village. The western bank will fail if the reservoir rises another 3 feet. Vane laughed softly. "A prediction from a woman who reads travel journals and calls herself a surveyor." Clara stood. She had heard variations of that insult since childhood. Her father had taken her across moors, river valleys, and disputed boundaries because her eye for distance was better than that of many trained assistants. She had learned to use a plane table before she learned to embroider, and she could calculate a gradient from 3 elevations without writing them down. Nathaniel knew all of this. He had once said her mind was what first drew him to her. Had transformed admiration into inconvenience whenever her conclusions challenged his authority. "Search my cloak," she said. "Search my luggage. If I stole your seal, you will find it. Until then, I will not surrender the only accurate map of the water beneath us." Nathaniel ordered the men outside. Vane protested, but a single look silenced him when they were alone. Nathaniel asked whether she understood how the discovery appeared. Clara answered that appearances had governed every decision he made that evening. At dinner, she had shown that the official drainage line missed the old riverbed by 40 yards. Calculations childish. Nathaniel sent her away rather than permit his wife to contradict a servant before guests. Now the servant arrived with an accusation, prepared before anyone knew what lay beneath the floor. "You believe he planted it?" Nathaniel asked. "I believe he knew what we would find." The house shuddered. A crack ran across the plaster, and muddy water burst through the wall near the hearth. Nathaniel caught Clara as the floor tilted. For one breath, she was against his chest, his arm locked around her waist as it had been during their first dance. Then he released her, as if tenderness itself were evidence against him. On the map, but instead of handing it to Vane, he sealed it inside his coat. "You will remain here under guard. In a building that is sinking, the lower rooms will be cleared, and you may use the attic." How generous. Pain crossed his face, but he gave no apology. He left her with 2 guards and carried away the map that might save everyone. Clara spent the night measuring the house. She tied a silver teaspoon to thread and used it as a plumb line, marked the rising water against the cellar stones, and listened to the interval between each vibration. The buried channel was not merely leaking. Someone had opened a feeder gate in controlled stages. At dawn, an elderly woman arrived with bread, blankets, and a warning not to drink from the well. Martha Bell had kept the western locks with her husband for 30 years before Vane dismissed them. She recognized Elias Ashbourne's compass and told Clara that her father had stayed at the Dower house during his final Ravensmere survey, argued with the late Duke about a forgotten medieval spillway, insisting that no reservoir should be built until it was reopened. 3 days later, Elias was thrown from his horse on the North Road and died before reaching home. Clara had been 16. She had accepted the verdict of accident because grief left no room for questions. Martha had not. Elias was a careful rider, and his saddle strap had been found cut rather than torn. Martha could say more. One of Nathaniel's guards entered. Vane had ordered her removed from the property. Clara stepped between them. "Mrs. Bell is my guest. The steward says she is a dismissed trespasser." Hushed. "The steward does not command my household." It was the first time Clara had claimed the Dower house as hers. Though its walls dripped and half its roof admitted daylight, the guard hesitated. "Drew." Martha smiled. "Your father would have liked that." Together they found a blocked stair descending from the pantry. It ended at a stone chamber where the old spillway wheel had once been operated. The wheel was gone, but circular scratches marked the floor. A single brass link lay wedged in the drain. Clara cleaned it and recognized a surveyor's chain link, unusually short by nearly 1/8 of an inch. Active link meant little, but a chain measured land by being laid repeatedly. Over miles, an intentional error compounded until boundaries shifted. Channels missed their targets. 30 yards disappeared from a map. She wrapped the link in linen and placed it inside her father's compass case. By noon, she had drawn the part of the hidden map she remembered. Father had marked 3 fixed points: the chapel tower, a split oak above the village, and a stone benchmark beside the reservoir. Any survey built from those points could be independently checked. Clara sent Nathaniel a request for a plain table, sighting rule, and access to the benchmark. Vane returned the message, torn in half. He also cut off coal deliveries and dismissed the Dower house cook. Clara traded a silver hair comb for provisions from the village and began teaching 2 tenant girls to record water levels. If Vane intended discomfort to produce surrender, he had mistaken restraint for helplessness. Daniel came. On the 3rd day, he found Clara on the roof in a borrowed workmaness coat. Citing the chapel tower through a brass rule, he ordered her down. She finished the angle first. Nice. "The Dower house is not a survey office," he said. "At present, it is the only office watching your reservoir." He had brought the oilskin map. Vane experts declared it a recent forgery modeled on obsolete plans. Clara asked whether those experts had explained the pinpricks at each triangulation point. Her father always pricked finished angles with a triangular needle he designed himself. A lens, the punctures would show oxidation and compressed fibers impossible to reproduce in fresh paper. Nathaniel admitted no one had examined them because Mr. Vane did not ask them to. Clara said, "You accuse him easily. You defend him easily." Nathaniel's younger brother James had died 12 years earlier when a bridge collapsed beneath his carriage. Father had ignored the estate engineer and trusted an enthusiastic friend with no qualifications. Nathaniel had spent his adult life believing that loyalty required faith in appointed authority and that unlicensed expertise invited disaster. Clara understood the wound, but not the injustice built around it. "I am not your father's friend," she said, "and I am not asking you to trust enthusiasm. I am asking you to test measurements." She gave him the coordinates of the 3 fixed points. If her reconstruction was wrong, his men could prove it within an hour. Nathaniel took the figures. Before leaving, he noticed there was no fire. Clara told him Vane had stopped the coal, his jaw tightened. That evening, 2 wagons arrived with fuel, food, and the plane table she requested. No apology accompanied them. The next morning, Nathaniel's engineers confirmed that the official reservoir survey deviated from the fixed points by 38 to 42 yards. Vane blamed an assistant who had died the previous winter. Opposed. Draining the reservoir gradually and rebuilding the eastern embankment, Clara objected. The eastern embankment was sound. Lowering water through its gates would send the current into the buried channel beneath the Dower house and collapse the western bank. Nathaniel permitted her to attend the engineering meeting, but seated her at the far end of the table without introducing her. Vane presented a revised plan that quietly adopted Clara's suggestion to reinforce the western bank first. A land agent congratulated him on the solution. Clara waited for Nathaniel to correct the record. He did not. Afterward, he said public confidence mattered more than credit. Confidence in whom? She asked. The man who produced the false survey or the woman you banished for finding it? Nathaniel replied that removing Vane without complete proof would alarm creditors and halt the harvest. Clara saw the calculation. Justice postponed until it became convenient. She also saw that Nathaniel had begun carrying her figures in his pocket. That afternoon, a warning bell sounded from the lower mill. The new diversion trench had begun pulling water from the reservoir faster than its brick lining could withstand. If it collapsed, 3 workers would be buried. Vane, as foreman, ordered them to brace the wall. Saw the current eating the earth behind their feet and shouted for them to run. The foreman refused to obey a woman. Nathaniel arrived as the first bricks shifted. Clara seized the red survey flag. Planted it 30 paces uphill and told the men the ground below it would disappear within 2 minutes. Nathaniel looked once at the angle of the water and ordered everyone behind her marker. The trench collapsed exactly where Clara predicted. No one died. Vane arrived later and announced that his emergency inspection had prevented a tragedy. This time, Nathaniel contradicted him in front of the workers. I saw the failure. You did not. The men removed their caps to Clara. Vane smiled, as though the correction did not matter, but his thumb rubbed the edge of his signet until the skin whitened. That night, someone entered the Dower house. Clara woke to the smell of lamp oil and found her reconstructed map burning on the desk. She smothered it with a blanket, saving only the lower half. The intruder escaped through the spillway stair and left muddy prints identical in size to Vane's boots. Yet when Nathaniel came, the estate seal was discovered beneath Clara's pillow. I'd swore no one had passed them. Vane produced a letter in Clara's hand offering reservoir plans to a canal company in exchange for money. Her signature was convincing. The paper came from her desk. Nathaniel stared at the seal, the forged letter, and the burned map. Tell me this is not yours, he said. It is not. The guards saw no intruder. One of them lied. Everyone lies except you, Clara met his eyes. No, but only one person in this room was punished before any evidence existed. Nathaniel did not order her arrest, and he did something that hurt almost as much. He removed Martha, dismissed the tenant girls, and placed Clara under guard inside the attic, while Vane searched the house. From the window, Clara watched men carry away her instruments, had protected workers, identified the false survey, and given Nathaniel a method to test every claim. One forged letter was enough to erase all of it. At midnight, she opened her father's compass case and found the short brass link still hidden beneath the velvet lining. Vane had searched for papers and seals, not a broken piece of chain. Clara placed it beside the forged letter Nathaniel had allowed her to keep. The handwriting imitated her slope and spacing, but the ink pooled at each turn. Whoever wrote it had paused to copy rather than moving naturally. More revealing was the paper. Its faint grid of pinholes came from a copying frame used in the estate office. Vane had prepared the forgery there, then used the spillway stair to enter without passing the guards. And he could reach that stair only if he knew the forgotten channel. His claim that Clara invented it was therefore impossible. At dawn, the reservoir bell rang 3 times, stopped, and continuously. Martha had once explained the code. 3 strokes meant a gate jammed. An unbroken bell meant uncontrolled release. Clara forced the attic lock with the brass tongue of her compass clasp and ran downstairs. Archers had gone. The guards tried to stop her until muddy water swept across the front hall. The dower house foundations split with a noise like cannon fire. Clara climbed through a window and saw the reservoir pouring over its western lip. Someone had opened the feeder gates and broken the control chain. The village lay directly below. Nathaniel galloped toward her with engineers behind him. He shouted that Vane had disappeared and the main winch would not move. Clara told him the only remaining choice was the ancient spillway. Its tunnel passed beneath the dower house and emptied into the Duke's southern hunting park. Opening, it would tear away the house, drown 2,000 acres of profitable timber, and destroy the new ornamental lake Nathaniel's creditors valued as security. "How certain are you?" he asked. "Certain enough to stand on the gate when it opens." Right at the house, the village roofs, and the black wall of water above them. "Tell me what you need." For the first time, Nathaniel gave Clara authority before proof arrived. Divided the workers into 3 groups. One cleared villagers from the lowest cottages. Another cut a bypass trench toward the spillway mouth. Nathaniel led the 3rd into the stone chamber beneath the dower house. The missing wheel had been replaced with a smooth iron cap designed to make the gate appear permanently sealed. Clara used the short chain link to measure the bolt spacing against her father's remembered diagram. Sat outside the circle. It was not a bolt, but a locking pin. Nathaniel struck it with a sledgehammer until his palms bled. The cap rotated. Water exploded through the chamber. Clara tied herself to the stair rail and guided the men by touch as the lamps went out. They turned the hidden mechanism 1 quarter, then another. Above them, the dower house groaned. Nathaniel ordered her out. She refused until the indicator reached the line her father had marked for full discharge. The gate opened. The western surge changed direction, ripping through the foundation and carrying half the house into the old channel. Nathaniel shielded Clara beneath the stone arch as the ceiling collapsed where she had slept, outside, and spread across the hunting park rather than the village. Ancient oaks fell. Deer scattered toward the hills. By evening, 300 homes remained dry, but the dower house was a roofless shell in a river of mud. Clara woke in Ravensmere Castle with her left shoulder bandaged. Nathaniel sat beside the bed, his hands wrapped in linen. He told her no villager had died. A miller had broken a leg. Cottages were damaged, and the hunting park was lost, but the reservoir level was falling. Vane remained missing. "You saved them," Nathaniel said. "My father drew the spillway. Mother was not beneath the house." Clara asked whether he still believed she forged the letter. Nathaniel placed the copying frame paper, the short link, and the estate seal on the blanket. Vanished. A guard had confessed that Vane paid him to leave the spillway stair unobserved. The second guard kept silent because Vane threatened his family's tenancy. Nathaniel had ordered both men held for the magistrate. I believed the evidence because it allowed me to preserve the judgment I had already made of you," he said. That was not caution. It was cowardice dressed as authority. Clara heard the apology. That attic remained inside her. "Do not ask me to forgive you because the water proved me useful. I will not." He gave her the keys to every map room, gatehouse, and archive on the estate. Not forgiveness. They are access you should never have needed to earn. She accepted the keys only because the danger had not ended. 2 days later, Clara insisted on visiting the village despite her injured shoulder. Nathaniel arranged a carriage, but she asked to walk the final half-mile so she could inspect the watermarks. Families had piled ruined furniture along the road. Children carried buckets from the church pump, and men were cutting mud from doorways with shovels. The villagers thanked Nathaniel for sacrificing his hunting park. He corrected them each time. The Duchess found the spillway. The Duchess directed the release. At the miller's cottage, Clara discovered that water had entered from beneath the floor rather than through the door. A secondary channel still connected the village to the reservoir. Less sealed, Even ordinary winter rain could undermine 6 homes. Vane's surviving foreman claimed the damage was too deep to repair before spring. Clara asked for 6 straight poles, carpenter's level, and the village well rope. With the tenant girls she had trained, she measured the fall from the mill yard to the exposed spillway bank. The channel could be intercepted by a shallow trench completed in 2 days. Nathaniel removed his coat and joined the digging. His wrapped hands reopened, staining the cloth. But he did not stop when landowners arrived to observe. Clara saw in that choice the beginning of responsibility. Not a grand declaration, but a duke standing ankle-deep in mud while the people affected by his decisions watched him work. At dusk they sat on the church wall sharing bread from Martha's abandoned basket. Nathaniel admitted that Vane had selected every engineer, clerk, and contractor who reinforced his fear of questioning appointed men. Clara told him authority was not the enemy. Authority protected people when its work could be examined. Her father had taught her never to trust a map that concealed its fixed points. A person should be judged similarly by the truths that remained visible when convenience changed. Nathaniel asked what fixed points she required from him. Public correction, independent access, and the freedom to leave without punishment. He promised all 3, then stopped himself. No. A promise is not evidence. I will put them in writing. It was the first answer he gave that did not ask her to trust his intention. The reservoir failure brought county drainage commissioners, and representatives of the Crown to Ravensmere within 4 days. Vane reappeared in London and sent a sworn statement accusing Clara of sabotaging the gates to demonstrate her theories. Nathaniel had become irrational under his wife's influence and asked the Court of Chancery to place the settled lands under temporary receivership. The canal company, named in the forged letter, supported him. If the court accepted the petition, Nathaniel would lose practical control of Ravensmere. Clara would be prosecuted for destroying the dower house and hunting park. Vane's plan had never required the village to be completely destroyed. He needed enough damage to bankrupt the estate and enough false evidence to make Clara responsible. The canal company could then purchase the flooded valley cheaply and build a navigation route through it. Thus, hidden map threatened that purchase because it showed the valley's protected common rights and the true location of the Crown boundary. Nathaniel wanted to ride to London and challenge Vane publicly. Clara stopped him. Anger would make Vane cautious. Contempt would make him careless. They needed to prove not merely that the survey was wrong, but that Vane had created the error deliberately. The original oilskin map had disappeared from Nathaniel's locked study during the flood. The lower half of Clara's copy had been destroyed with the dower house. Martha Bell was also gone. A cottage stood open, a chair overturned and blood on the doorframe. Without the old lock-keeper, Vane could claim the spillway story had been invented after the disaster. Nathaniel blamed himself for not protecting her. Clara noticed that Martha's heavy boots remained by the hearth. She would never cross wet fields in indoor shoes. Someone had carried her to a vehicle. In the mud outside, Clara found a repeating curved mark rather than a horseshoe print. One wheel of the estate survey wagon had a bent iron rim that left precisely such a scar. Vane had taken Martha in the same vehicle that carried his measuring equipment, followed the wheel marks to an abandoned lime quarry beyond the Crown boundary. Nathaniel wanted guards to enter first, but Clara saw fresh cracks along the quarry face and stopped them. A careless approach would trigger a fall. Using her father's compass and the position of 3 drilling holes, she identified the stable path. They found Martha locked in a powder shed, but alive. The survey wagon stood nearby with its drawers emptied. Vane had removed the official chain, yet one brass fastening remained in the wagon bed. It bore the maker's mark of the Royal Standards Office and a serial number, 9. Martha remembered Elias comparing that chain against his own. Vane had replaced several regulation links with shortened copies before conducting the reservoir survey, then kept the original links in a pouch. He could adjust a boundary wherever his clients required. Elias discovered the alteration and hid his map before confronting him. Vane loosened Elias' saddle strap, but had lacked proof that Clara's father found the tampering. And he waited 16 years to build the reservoir because Nathaniel's late father refused the expense. Once Nathaniel inherited and married Clara, Vane realized Elias' daughter might recognize the false geometry. He pushed the project forward, isolated her as a bookish wife, and encouraged Nathaniel to interpret every objection as disloyalty. Martha had overheard Vane tell the quarry foreman that the oilskin map would be burned at the commissioners. Hearing after Clara was forced to identify it, the document was bait, intended to produce a skillful imitation, make Clara swear it was her father, then expose the modern ink and destroy her credibility. Clara decided to let him try before leaving the quarry. She measured the surviving brass fastening and copied its serial number. Captain Rowe took Martha to a physician outside the estate, where Vane's men could not find her. Nathaniel sent the evidence to the Royal Standards Office and requested the original manufacture ledger. The reply would not arrive before the hearing. They needed a trap that worked without it. The night before the commissioners assembled, Nathaniel joined Clara in the map room. He confessed that after James died, he had sworn never to let affection overrule official advice. Understood that promise and made himself the voice of official certainty. Nathaniel had not merely trusted the wrong man. He had rewarded him each time he diminished Clara. My brother's death explains my fear, he said. It does not excuse what I did to you. He offered to withdraw his opposition to a legal separation and settle an independent income upon her, whether Ravensmere survived or not. Supporting her public testimony would strengthen Vane's claim that Nathaniel was controlled by his wife, yet he would do it. Clara told him she did not want a sacrifice performed in private. If he believed her, he must correct the public harm before the same servants and tenants who watched him banish her. Nathaniel agreed. Clara spent that night rehearsing not a speech but the custody of every object. That link had passed from the spillway drain to her compass case, then into Nathaniel's locked map drawer in the presence of Captain Rowe. The wagon fastening had been removed at the quarry before Martha and 2 guards. The forged letter remained in the magistrate's sealed envelope. She labeled each item and asked every witness to describe only what they personally saw. Nathaniel wanted to place armed men at every door. Clara refused. Vane must believe escape remained possible, or he would say nothing beyond prepared answers. She positioned the false map table near the eastern window, where transmitted light would reveal its fibers, and reserved an empty chair beside the commissioners for Martha. On a slate hidden below the table, she wrote the 3 facts Vane could not safely know. The short link's exact length, concealed common land phrase, and the location of the genuine spillway indicator. Her plan did not depend upon him confessing. It required only that his arrogance make him correct a woman he believed inferior. Whitehall filled the next morning. County commissioners sat beneath the Ravensmere crest. Canal investors occupied one side. Villagers and estate workers stood on the other. Vane entered in a grey coat, calm and respectable, carrying an oilskin map. He began by describing Clara as intelligent but unstable, a woman desperate to prove the value of informal lessons received from a grieving father. Produced the forged letter, the stolen estate seal, and the false map. Clara examined it under every eye in the room. The paper was old, the ink artificially faded, and the triangular pinpricks imitated Elias' tool. The false map. The chief commissioner asked. No, Clara said. Vane smiled. He reminded the room that she had previously claimed a map with the same features was genuine, and Clara explained the difference. Elias pricked each completed angle from the front, while the page rested on a sheet of wool, leaving fibers pressed toward the back. Vane's copy had been punctured from behind, so the holes would look older on the face. Importantly, the chapel tower on the false map carried the steeple, added 5 years after Elias died. Vane had copied the modern skyline rather than the one her father surveyed. Vane dismissed the errors as proof that Clara herself made the document. She asked him to describe the short link found beneath the dower house. He claimed it came from Elias' defective chain and caused the false measurements. How short was it? She asked. 1/8 of an inch. The hall went quiet. Clara had never announced the amount publicly. Only Nathaniel, Martha, and the person who manufactured or used the altered chain knew it. To recover, saying an engineer had told him. Every engineer denied it. Clara then placed the survey wagon, fastening on the table, and read its serial number. Vane insisted no official record connected it to him. Doors opened. A mud-stained courier from London delivered the Royal Standards ledger, obtained by Nathaniel as fastest riders in relay. The serial number belonged to a 66-foot regulation chain issued to Ravensmere during Vane's first year as steward. Inspection notes showed it passed every standard before entering his custody. The shortened links were therefore later substitutions. Nathaniel rose before Vane could answer. In the presence of the servants who had watched Clara leave, he stated that he had punished his wife for speaking truth. Allowed her work to be credited to another, confined her on forged evidence, and treated rank as proof of judgment. He restored her household authority and declared that the reservoir decisions had been his responsibility, not hers. If the commissioners required an owner to answer for the ruined hunting park, he would answer. The admission cost him the defense of ignorance Vane expected him to use. It also left Vane alone with the sabotage. Martha entered with Captain Rowe and identified the altered chain, the hidden spillway, and Vane's confession at the quarry. The guard who accepted Vane's money confirmed the secret entrance. Our company, S, junior clerk, seeing that Vane could no longer protect him, produced payment orders for the forged letter, the broken gate chain, and the proposed purchase of the flooded valley. The final mistake was the map he brought. Clara placed it over a window and showed a faint crescent stain where it had been pressed against the genuine oilskin while still damp. Reproduced part of Elias' original notation, the words common land by royal grant. Vane could copy that phrase only by possessing the stolen map. Captain Rowe searched his document case and found the genuine survey sewn into its lining. Commissioners ordered Vane detained for fraud, kidnapping, attempted mass harm, and the murder inquiry into Elias Ashbourne's death. The canal company lost its charter petition and agreed to compensate the village in exchange for cooperation from its innocent shareholders. The bribed guard faced dismissal and prosecution. Second, who had yielded under threat, testified and retained his family S cottage under independent review. The reservoir was lowered permanently. Clara S plan replaced it with smaller holding ponds, stored wetlands, and a rebuilt spillway that no single steward could control. Nathaniel did not ask Clara to return to their former rooms. He rebuilt the dower house on higher ground and placed the property in a trust controlled by Clara alone. He established the Ashbourne Survey Office, where women and tenant children with aptitude could learn mapping, arithmetic, and land law. Every estate project would require 2 independent measurements, and the results would be available to the villagers affected. These repairs did not erase the locked attic or the hour she had been given to leave. Clara told Nathaniel so. He answered that he would rather earn 1 honest day beside her than demand a lifetime through marriage, vows. Through the following months, they worked without pretending the wound had vanished. Nathaniel listened when her conclusions inconvenienced him. Clara allowed his changed actions, not his title, to carry weight. Respect returned first, then laughter, then the tenderness both had buried beneath pride and disappointment. Anniversary of her banishment. Nathaniel assembled the household in the entrance hall. The same servants stood along the staircase. He held no order, only the ring of keys Clara had once been denied. And a year ago, I sent the most capable person at Ravensmere away because the truth embarrassed me, he said. Today, no map, gate, or counsel on this estate is closed to her. He offered the keys but did not move closer. I took them. Then she opened the front door herself. Outside, the rebuilt village road curved toward the new survey office. Martha waited beside the first class of students. Plaque bore Elias Ashbourne's name. and beneath it a smaller line read, "Measure twice, believe what the land proves." Clara placed her father's compass in a glass case, but kept the short chain link in her pocket. Some evidence belonged in archives, other evidence belonged close enough to touch whenever certainty became pride. Nathaniel asked whether she intended to live at the dower house or the castle. Clara looked from the independent home he had given without condition to the man who had finally learned that protection did not mean command. "Both," she said. "The dower house will be my office. Castle will be our home if you remember that I enter it by choice." Nathaniel offered his arm. Clara did not take it immediately. She finished marking a corrected boundary on the student's map, and her own name beneath the work, and only then stepped beside him. Behind them, the reservoir no longer towered over the village. Water moved through the reopened spillway in a controlled silver line, following the course her father had drawn and the future she had chosen for herself.